Hello and welcome to the Essex Boys Murder Case, part 57. Before watching this video, I recommend watching part 4 on YouTube first, as these videos are all about the key individuals and the murder victims' movements on the day of the 6th of December 1995. A quick mention to the Facebook page called The Real Essex Boys Murder Club. If you're interested, please feel free to join, as some great people on there with a lot of knowledge on this subject. So, this is part 3 of the 5:03 PM phone call videos. Now, in these set of videos, I'm going to look into if the 5:03 PM phone call to Pat Tates mobile was made on the 5th, being the day before the murders, or the 6th, which was the evening of the murders. Now, we don't know who tried to contact Pat Tate, but what we do know is it was made from a phone kiosk close to the Halfway House pub. Now, if you've been following my Day of the Murder videos, you will have heard of the Halfway House pub, as it is significant to this case, as according to Darren Nichols' statements, he said the meeting place for Mick Steele and the Essex Boys on the night of the murders was the Halfway House pub. So what I'll do now is give you a quick recap of what I've covered in part 1 and 2 of them 5:03 PM phone call videos. But if you haven't watched them yet, I do recommend watching them before you watch this video. In part 1 and 2, I covered the possibility of if the call was made on the 5th, the day before the murders. I looked at if a final recce was done by Mick Steele and the others, and when they got to the pre-chosen murder location, being the White House Farm track, Jack received a call, and if it was the call that caught him out and put him in the resident area the day before the murders. Now, after that call he received on his mobile from his home landline, I looked into the possibility if there was enough time for them to leave the track and get to a phone kiosk close to the Halfway House pub in Brentwood, where the call to Pat Tates mobile was made. And I proved there was indeed enough time to make that journey, and Mick Steele could have made that call. I also looked at the phone log evidence just after 5:03 PM on the 5th, and there was frantic calls being made by Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe. So that call could have been made on the 5th. So, in this video, I will look into the possibility of that phone call to Pat Tates mobile being made on the 6th and who it could have been. Now, what I thought I'd do first is just start off at Mark's Tea. And according to Darren Nichols' testimony, he said he turned up at this place here, which is London Road, in Mark's Tea. And he said he parked down here on the left, outside, a small block of flats. So he would have driven in here, turned his white Golf convertible in here, turned it around, and then according to him he parked it here. And he then says he got out and crossed the road and headed towards Ron Parkinson's motorcycle shop, which obviously it's not here now, but back then it would have been this place here. Now, Darren Nichols says he went inside the motorcycle shop to buy something, as Mick nor Jack had turned up yet, and when he came out of the shop, Mick had arrived in his Toyota Hilux. So it's about 5:10 in the evening. Then he said Jack turned up at last in the Volkswagen Passat. Mick told Nichols to get into the Hilux with him, and Jack would follow in convoy. And they apparently set off at approximately 5:15 PM in this direction. So what they do is they set off in convoy from Marks T, heading towards Brentwood along the A12, and then eventually they would arrive at the Brentwood turning, and the first place they're going to stop off at is this place here, which is the Thorndon Country Park, which isn't too far from the Halfway House pub, where their next location will be. God, it's not another Range Rover. Another Range Rover. It's just so spooky when I'm making these videos. So, Mick drops Darren off at the entrance to the Thorndon Country Park and tells him to get into the Passat with Jack, and they drive down the lane, and whoever does it, one of them gets the false registration plates out and tries to stick them on to the Passat, and eventually when they've done that, they're going to set off towards the Halfway House pub, where Mick Seal will already be there waiting for the Essex Boys to turn up. Now this journey, you're talking what? I think it's a 32-minute journey, and then I think it's an 8-minute journey to get to Thorndon Park, and then change the number plates, then set off again. So, if that 5:03 PM phone call to Pat Tates' mobile was made on the 6th, the evening of the murders, then it was impossible to have been Mick, Jack or Darren Nichols who made that call. If Darren Nichols is telling the truth in this part of his statement, then these three were about 35 miles away at Marks T when that call was made to Pat Tate from a payphone kiosk in Brentwood, close to the Halfway House pub. So that rules out Mick, Jack and Darren Nichols out if this call was made on the 6th. I have said in previous videos that either on the 5th or the 6th of December 1995 that Mick and the others met someone at the Halfway House pub car park. If a mystery person did turn up on the 5th, then to me they knew about the final recce Mick and the others were doing and may have been involved in the final recce. Was it someone Mick, Jack and Darren Nichols trusted? Someone who was being involved in the drugs importation with these three in the past? I mean, were they involved in the drugs importation in 95? And was it their job to be here in the Brentwood area on the 6th to make that phone call from a phone kiosk to Pat Tates' mobile at 5:03 p.m. and tell him Mick's told him to phone him and tell him Mick will be at the Halfway House pub car park round about 6:15 p.m. and he'll show you where the intended drugs drop is going to take place. I mean, could it have been Peter Corey? The man who was on trial with Mick and Jack for the drugs importation part. He was a good friend of Mick Steele and was involved in previous drug runs with Jack and Nichols. As well as murder, Steele and Wooms were convicted of conspiring to import cannabis. Steele was sentenced to 8 years and Jack Wooms to 6.5. Peter Corey, who was 44 at the time and from Clacton-on-Sea, received a 4.5-year sentence for his part of conspiring to import cannabis. Now, he was trusted by Mick and Jack and had been involved with Mick's drugs importations in the past. From what I've researched about Peter Corey, he didn't have much money, so he relied on doing what he could for his friend Mick Steele in the drugs importation. Now, and Mick Steele also trusted him. There was a funny part of the Blogs 19 book when Darren Nichols was with Peter Corey, I think it was in Amsterdam, and Nichols had hired a vehicle. Now they were waiting somewhere and Peter Corey, he was panicking, thinking they were going to get caught. So he said to Nichols, "If the police stop us, I'm just a hitchhiker grabbing a lift." I mean, I literally found that part quite funny because he knows Nichols hired the car and the drugs are in the boot. And if they do get stopped, he's going to say he's just a hitchhiker and doesn't know anything. I just find his excuse to get out of it really funny. And he doesn't care one bit about Darren Nichols. But yeah, I did find that part quite funny. I mean, how close were Mick Steele and Peter Corey? And could Mick trust him to drive to Brentwood and make that call to Pat Tates' mobile? He was on trial in 1996 with Mick and Jack for conspiring to put cannabis, and for his part, like I say, got 4.5 years. Now, this is not the first time he's been on trial for this offence. Back in 1986, he was on remand for the same offence, but he was eventually acquitted. Now, when Mick Steele moved to Meadow Cottage in late 95, he lived closer to Peter Corey. I mean, this is when he first met Darren Nichols. When Corey went round to see Steele at Meadow Cottage, Nichols was there, and Corey took a dislike to him straight away. Now, according to Corey, he said Nichols was too forward in asking him questions like, where did he work? What did his wife do? He said Nichols obviously knew my background with Mick, and he soon learned about Nichols without even asking. Now, is Nichols being polite by asking Corey questions, or is he fishing for information on Corey so he could pass it on to his police handlers? When I was going through Peter Corey's statement, I did find something very interesting. Now, Corey said Nichols was lying when he told police he did not know where he lived. Corey says Nichols delivered a Golf to his house. He said he had no idea where it had originated from, and Corey says he did not own it or even had owned it. Now this has to be the white Golf convertible he was driving around in when the Essex Boys were murdered. In my Day of the Murder videos, when I was at the 5 PM time slot, I covered Darren Nichols turning up at Mark's Tea, like I've shown in this video, and he parked a white Golf convertible outside a block of flats, which I showed you earlier, and then he went over to Ron Parkinson's motorcycle shop, and then he came out, and he was met by Mick Dale, who turned up in his Toyota Hilux. Then moments later, Jack turned up in the Volkswagen Passat. Now, Darren Nichols says he was told to get into Mick's Hilux whilst Jack would follow down in the Passat. So Nichols' white Golf convertible was left at Mark's Tea on the night of the murders. Did Darren Nichols play a bigger part in the Rettendon Range Rover murders, and he didn't want to be seen with his car in case he was spotted when he met with the others at Mark's Tea, or when he went to pick it up after the murders were committed? I find it strange that after the murders he takes the car to Peter Corey's house and asks if he can leave it there. Why do this? I mean, why not park it on his own driveway or street? There's lots of places he could park it on Bailey Bridge Road. Why does Darren Nichols want to park his car on someone else's drive miles away from where he lives and just leave it there? I mean, is he trying to distance himself from this car? And if so, why? I mean, I do find this very suspicious, and the fact Peter Corey said to the police Darren Nichols was lying when he said he didn't know where he lived. So back to Peter Corey. Could he have been asked by Mick Steele to drive to Brentwood on the 6th and make that phone call to Pat Tates' mobile? Did he do a recce with Mick Steele and the others the day before the murders? After that call was made, did he set off to Rettendon or wait for the Passat to turn up? I mean, to me, Peter Corey was low down in the drugs world. Like I say, in 1986, he was remanded for conspiracy to supply cannabis. I mean, he lost his house and his business. I mean, he was allowed to borrow tools from Mick Steele's lockup in exchange for helping with odd jobs. Was this just another odd job? I mean, I'm just trying to work out why he would ask Peter Corey to drive to Brentwood and make that call. Why wouldn't Mick just make that call to Pat Tate up in Mark's Tea? I mean, would Peter Corey want to be risked being involved in a triple murder? I did say earlier in this video, when he and Darren Nichols were in Amsterdam and the car they were in was hired by Darren Nichols, Corey says to him, if they get pulled over and the police find the cannabis, I'm just saying I'm a hitchhiker. I mean, he didn't want to get done for that and was prepared to dump it all on Darren Nichols. The only thing I can think of is Corey would get a bigger cut from now on when the drugs were smuggled in. What we do know is Corey had a dislike for Darren Nichols from the moment he met him. What I don't know is if Darren Nichols felt the same, as I've not come across anything so far But what I will say is, if Darren Nichols had a dislike for him, then if Peter Corey was involved in these murders, did Darren Nichols deliberately ask if he could leave his car on his driveway for however long, just in case the police brought him in for questioning over the triple murders? And if the car was mentioned, he would say he didn't own the white Golf convertible. He would say he sold it to Peter Corey. I mean, let's not forget, Darren Nichols had a habit for not registering vehicles back then. And one last thing is, if Peter Corey was involved, then why didn't Darren Nichols bring him down along with the others? Okay, so that's it for this particular video, and next time I will look at other people who could have made that call on behalf of Mick Steele. And don't forget, if you want to see the next video as soon as I upload it, please subscribe to my channel. Until next time, take care.